So in economics, we talk a lot about externalities, right? Usually we talk about them in terms of pollution and how when you buy power from the power company, there's a third party that's impacted by the environmental degradation that happens, right? We talk about them with vaccines and flu shots and things like that, right? How there's a positive externality because it means that a third party that's not participating in the transaction is going to get a benefit to it. They're less likely to catch the flu or whatever it is the thing that you're getting inoculated against is. Now we're talking about what's called a macroeconomic externality. A macro externality is something that where the impact on the macro level is greater than the micro level action. And so the specific macroeconomic externality that we're talking about here is the expenditure multiplier, right? What is this expenditure multiplier? Well, the expenditure multiplier is a Keynesian concept that says that the changes that we make in spending are going to be less than the changes that we desire in terms of GDP. So the change in spending is always going to be less than the total change. So another way that this is represented is that the ratio of the change in GDP to the change in spending, right? Almost always talking about government spending, is greater than 1. Now, why is this happening? This is happening because one person's spending becomes another person's income. Which leads to them spending, right? So the other person's income, which is then going to lead to them spending, which is going to lead to somebody else getting income, which is going to lead to that third person spending their income, right? And so on and so forth. And so the cumulative impact on GDP is larger than the initial increase in spending. So the government pays to expand 385 from a 2-lane to a 4-lane highway. So they hire a construction company and they pay the construction company. The construction company pays its workers. Those workers receive that income, and what do? They spend it on groceries and just various goods and services around town. And then every time they spend money around the goods and services around town, that's income for those entrepreneurs and those workers that are working at those places where those construction workers are shopping, right? So the income of the construction worker becomes the income of the shopkeeper and the people that are working in the shops. And then again, this whole story just kind of continues on. And the reason why we can actually calculate what the cumulative impact is because it is a decreasing geometric series. So anytime we have a decreasing geometric series, we can end up summing it and figure out what the summation is, because at a certain point, the addition that's happening, in ad infinitum, right? The addition that's happening for the rest of time, at some point it just becomes so small. It's like 0.000000001 cent, and so it doesn't end up actually impacting the dollar amount. Okay, and then one last thing. The size of the multiplier effect is inverse to the savings rate. So if our savings rate is smaller, our multiplier effect is larger, right? Because when you think about it, what part of this one person's income isn't spent? It's the savings. So a country that saves 1% of their income is going to have a larger multiplier effect because there's just more spending every time there's additional income, compared to some place that has a 15 or 20% savings rate, which is going to have a slower expenditure multiplier.